Welcome to Yarns from Down Under. Pro-revenge. Sink the pirate.
The 90s. What a time to be a young bloke, eh? It wasn't just a decade, it was a frontier. We're talking ancient history here, a grudge I'd been nursing since I was just a teenager, back when the net was still a rumour whispered between tech nerds, and computers weren't sleek, silent devices, but chunky beige beasts that dominated a desk and hummed like a faulty refrigerator. This isn't just a story of petty teenage squabbles. It's a testament to the lengths two kids would go to for justice, or perhaps just spectacular, highly orchestrated mischief. The stakes weren't just about a few games. They were about honour in our small, pixelated kingdom. The sacred art of PC piracy and the ponger's betrayal. See, my mate and I were the high priests of PC gaming in our little slice of the world. We had only two machines with enough RAM and a fast enough CD-ROM drive to matter truly. This was before every second kid had an Xbox or a PlayStation. PC gaming was a serious commitment, an expensive hobby, and a lifestyle. Getting your hands on new games? Near impossible, mate. The local shops were hopeless. They didn't stock much beyond ancient flight simulators or the latest The Settlers expansion. So we'd shell out big dollar, pulling our lunch money and paper round earnings, getting the latest and greatest airmailed from overseas, often waiting weeks for a little cardboard box to turn up. It was expensive as chips, but the price was halved because we'd trade 'em and master the dongle dance, painstakingly copying the ridiculous multi-layered copy protection. Remember those little code wheels, those lenses you had to hold up to the manual, or finding the 10th word on the 23rd page of the manual? That's what made it possible for us to even afford a fraction of the library we owned. We were a proper little two-person pirate ship, sharing the burden and the bounty, our games or our treasure. Then this new kid turns up in class. Let's call him Bruce. Bruce, all swagger and boast, claimed his uncle had a hoard of games we'd only dreamed of, titles that hadn't even landed on our shores yet. We thought, ripper, we'll trade with this bloke. We were dead keen, handing over our genuine, original copies, the real deal, LucasArts classics like Monkey Island and Sam and Max, the full install discs for Doom 2, the lot, for him to copy and return. We were trusting, maybe naive, but we were just desperate for some fresh gaming content, willing to accept a slight risk for a potential massive reward. What did we get back? A load of absolute rubbish. The return process was slow, grudging, and utterly infuriating. We'd get corrupted floppies that made your PC cough, splutter, and spit 'em out with a general protection fault, the digital equivalent of a death rattle. Or we'd get CD-ROMs with the crucial copy protection files cleverly missing, rendering the disk useless for installation. Sometimes the discs looked like he'd literally used them as a coaster for his post-school Milo. Month after month of this, and he'd scored our entire precious library, while we had not a single working game to show for it. To add insult to injury, some of the original boxes he returned were even crumpled, stained with fingerprints, or had the manual scribbled in. We were furious, mate. Proper ropeable. The betrayal was personal. It was an attack on our sacred gamer brotherhood, and a financial sting we could barely absorb. We wanted revenge, but it had to be subtle, devastating, and absolutely unprovable. We needed a plan, a bloody good one, that would hit him where it hurt the most. The mockery, the motherlode, and the plan's genesis. Now, the 90s were a heavy, intense time for AIDS campaigns here in Australia. Freddie Mercury's death in '91 had plastered it all over the news, and the government campaigns were constant, stark, severe, and designed to shock. I was a massive Queen fan, the kind who had the Innuendo album on repeat, defending my hero to anyone who'd listen. Bruce, being the little grub he was, would constantly mock me for liking a gay singer and throw around the word poof like it was currency. He was a nasty piece of work, and his insults weren't just aimed at me.
He came from a conservative family, the kind where the mum was very Catholic, the kind that probably covered the legs of the dining table, and you could practically smell the rigid disapproval hanging in the air. This was the key. His own bigotry was the blueprint for his downfall. Our whole class had to go to an AIDS awareness event run by a foundation. It was all very formal, severe, and frankly a bit awkward for a room full of giggling teenagers. At the end of the seminar, the staff were handing out flyers about safe sex, homosexuality, and get this, piles of free condoms in little packets, all stamped with the foundation's official logo. My mate and I were looking at each other from across the room, silent, our eyes widening with the same awful, brilliant idea. We didn't exchange a word, just a look of pure, unadulterated villainy. We quietly stocked up, stuffing our pockets with as many of the branded items as we could. We didn't need to say a word. The plan was forming on its own. We knew those condoms and those flyers were going to be gold. The forgery and the final elegant strike. The execution had to be flawless. We were some of the few with a computer and, crucially, a colour inkjet printer at home. Serious, expensive gear back then. The plan had to look authentic, so we spent hours in my garage, hunched over the glowing, low-resolution screen. We created a perfect fake letterhead, meticulously mimicking the AIDS Foundation's logo and institutional style. We found the right font, the proper spacing, even the slight colour shift you get from a cheap inkjet. The letter we cooked up was a work of art, pure, distilled mischief. We aimed it right at his family's most sensitive prejudices. The letter was polite, professional, and absolutely loaded with false implications. Dear Bruce, thank you for your heartfelt letter. We understand it's difficult being open about being homosexual and navigating these personal questions, especially after attending the recent event with your class. The courage to reach out is commendable. I'm attaching a flyer which should answer many of your questions, and we've also included some complimentary condoms. Please remember to practice safe sex at all times. Sincerely, the Community Outreach Team. The beauty of it was its total plausibility. It was not overtly slanderous, but it implied Bruce had initiated contact, confessed deep personal anxieties. We enclosed all the flyers and those little foundation-branded condoms we'd collected and popped the whole shebang into a plain envelope. The final critical touch, we addressed it deliberately to Mr. Bruce's last name, making sure the formal title was there to guarantee his old man, the stern patriarch, would be the one to open the mail first, assuming it was some sort of official correspondence or school notice. The shitstorm that followed was more magnificent than we could ever have dreamed. We were fishing for gossip for days, and the stories filtered through the schoolyard like wildfire. From the maid, the neighbour, another kid in his younger sister's class. The details were deliciously dramatic. His mum was hysterical, apparently crying and shouting that his son was going to hell and disgraced the family's good Catholic name. His dad was stone cold angry, convinced his son had been leading a secret life. Bruce was grounded for weeks, his parents thoroughly convinced he was a secret homosexual who had reached out to the foundation for help, triggered by the school event. The gaming betrayal was instantly and entirely overshadowed by the chaos we'd unleashed. We had hit the bullseye. He eventually figured out we were behind it. We weren't subtle, constantly asking him if he'd gotten any interesting mail lately, a cheeky grin plastered continuously on our faces. Initially, he thought we'd actually dobbed him into the fundamental foundation. When we finally confessed we'd faked the whole thing, that led to a very awkward, very uncomfortable trip to the principal's office with his parents, who were still visibly stressed, humiliated, and utterly convinced of our depravity, glaring daggers at us. We got a stern talking to and a week of detention, but honestly, it felt like nothing. The principal was clearly uncomfortable with the specifics of the situation and just wanted it to go away. Even though it was 30-odd years ago, standing there, listening to the full scope of the parental meltdown we'd caused, the genuine terror and shame of his deeply conservative family laid bare, it was perfect. Best revenge I ever took in my life, mate. Couldn't buy that kind of satisfaction. The cost of those games was finally paid in full with interest.
Thanks for watching another clip by Yarns from Down Under. If you enjoyed this clip, please hit the thumbs up, the subscribe button and the bell. Another story from Yarns from Down Under will drop real soon. Cheers.